Hi, it's Emma, and I'm here with another Represent. I'm delighted to be joined by Katie Gaffney, who is Vice President at Goldman Sachs. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm pleased that you like our pink trees.
I love them. I'd like to have some of these in my own home.
You're not allowed to take
Oh,
them.
no.
Sorry. So could you tell us a little bit about your role at Goldman Sachs and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I sit within the engineering division and I look after what we call like tech regional leadership. So I look at the strategy for our people, for our culture, our community, our outreach, which is obviously why we're partners on the Co-First Girls program. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at the moment.
Amazing. And we are really, really happy to have Goldman Sachs here because I think we've been partners since 2021.
Yeah.
It's one of our longest standing partners, which is great. And your whole tech career, were you interested in tech as a young woman?
Yes, I was, but probably without knowing. So now, like reflecting and looking back, I think it was kind of always in my DNA. So actually, I recently was chatting to my mum, and she had my old school reports, and she pulled out one from when I was age 6. And in those days, there was only like one computer in the classroom, no iPads or anything like that. And it was written on the school report that I would always gravitate towards the computer at free play. So definitely wasn't in the art corner or in the book corner. Was always kind of towards the computer. And it's just kind of followed me through really throughout my kind of school life, and then obviously choosing to do a technical degree at university as well. And here I am now in a technical job. So yeah.
Great. But you were saying you went to an all-girls school.
I did,
And
yes.
so was there lots of competition around the computer?
Definitely not. Yeah, so I went to a all-girls state school, and for GCSE there was a fair few actually that wanted to take it, which looking back now was probably quite surprising. But there was a fair few of us. But then when I wanted to stay on, if I wanted to stay on to do A-level technology or computing, that wasn't offered. So that was quite alarming that actually looking back, if I wanted to stay at that school where some of my friends did stay, I wouldn't have been able to if I wanted to do computing. So I ended up moving schools.
To move schools in order to continue your tech education.
Tech education, yeah.
That's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking about that in the context of today.
Exactly. And I think looking back, I was quite bold. And one of my closest friends, I'm still really good friends with her, but, you know, leaving her behind at that school to move to another school, you know, I was quite bold to make that decision. And luckily we've stayed friends, but that could have been very different, right, if we'd have gone to different schools. And so it's quite interesting looking back.
And you mentioned quite a lot of self-learning in those early days as well. So you said that your dad had a hardware store, and you were mentioning getting it on the web would have really helped his business.
Yeah, exactly. My dad is the most untechnical person you've ever come across.
Not in the genes then.
No, definitely not in the genes. And I'm still trying now with an iPhone. He still can't work an iPhone. So yeah, his hardware shop, like all the store management was all done on paper. I just kept saying to him, there's a risk here, you know, and all the ticketing of the prices of items was all done manually. Just took so much work. And that was where I spent my Saturdays as a 15, 16-year-old, trying to earn a bit of pocket money to buy some clothes. And so I just keep saying to him, I think we need to like automate. I think we need to go online with this. So I spent a lot of time in my spare time creating a website. And also my parents, their friends had a wedding car that they'd redone from scratch. They'd spent like 15 years on this Jag, making it into a lovely wedding car, and they were like, we want to put it online. And I was like, great opportunity. And the nice story was actually the last journey the wedding car took was for my wedding. So it was really sweet that I'd obviously, you know, my younger days where I didn't ever imagine meeting the man and getting married, to then seeing, you know, when I was working on the website, to then being able to use that car for my own wedding was quite something. But yeah, I just loved the visual.
Did you crash it on the way home? Is that why it was the last last journey the car ever took?
But no, it was just lovely being able to see something like that and help and see how, you know, advertising it locally and some of the local wedding supplier websites that we could then and they got the customer uptake they got after we posted it online was just huge, because before it was just word of mouth and flyers at kind of wedding showcases. So yeah, it was really quite special.
And it was that exciting first iteration of businesses getting on the web as
Yeah.
well. Whereas now you wouldn't even think twice about not having a website.
Exactly. And now you can just rely on social media. You know, you could put a post up. Anyone can do that with pictures and a bit of text. Obviously, websites are still incredibly valuable, especially when you want to obviously attract businesses. But there's many more means now. Whereas then that was kind of really the only way to kind of target outside customers. So yeah.
And do you remember learning to code?
Yes, I do. I remember spending many hours like banging my head against like the computer if something wouldn't compile, and I typically be doing a lot of it in my spare time. So it would be like, you know, a lot of late nights and yeah. But I really found like my network was my kind of, at the time, my friends were kind of my saviors. So you know, if I'd spent a weekend trying to solve a computer problem, obviously again in those days I think we were just about getting like MSN Messenger, but definitely not like WhatsApp or anything where you could just quickly contact your friends with, I've got this problem. So very often, you know, I'd use my IT lessons at school to then kind of, I've got this problem with this website, can anyone help? And then you know, as friends we'd all get together and kind of solve it together, and vice versa, right? If my friend was having the same problem, I remember we'd spend our free time kind of trying to hack away at our problems. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you think your tribe and your community had a lot to do with you learning tech in those early days?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I just don't think I would have got as far as I did if I didn't have friends around me and like-minded individuals that, you know, were keen to code, but just, you know, not necessarily something, you know, I wouldn't say it was a natural thing for me. It didn't come easy. You know, you sometimes these things come really easily, but I did have to work at it, and a lot of late nights. So yeah.
Like who is coding coming easily to? It's
Yeah,
so
true,
hard.
True. Yeah.
So that's amazing. And how much, I mean, now you've obviously built your career up into leadership and you're managing teams and people.
Yeah.
How much do you really have your hands in the weeds with the technical side now?
Probably like a little less so at this point in time. I think I mentioned at the beginning, like very people kind of strategy driven at the moment, regionally. But at the end of the day, there is always technical problems to solve, even on the people side. Like when we're looking at data population at the moment, doing some analysis, and it's like there is always coding problems, just they're very different at different stages. So so I've had a lot of experience from running hands-on projects and programs, like owning applications, to now being kind of removed from that, but being able to use the skills I acquired during that time to kind of be hands-on in some of the situations now, as I said, with kind of data analysis, which is what I'm heavily doing at the moment.
And you mentioned in kind of the earlier days of your career, the fact that you would try and get stuck in everything.
Yeah.
And then that's done you a world of favors now.
Yeah, I think that was like, at the time, I kind of did it unconsciously. Like I just felt like that was the only way to learn. So yeah, I'd hugely recommend to anyone just starting out to just kind of definitely like get as much information as you can while you don't have like huge responsibilities of people, big teams, big programs. Like, you know, get stuck in. I think I mentioned this to you earlier, like when we were talking beforehand, like there were days where I was doing like a release manager, you know, I'd be working all weekend releasing code because that was what we did then. We couldn't release it during the week. You have to do it on the weekend. And I played the role as the release manager, and then the next week I play the role as the database QA tester. So being writing SQL queries, like, you know, testing how the database was performing. Like there was a whole bunch of kind of roles I performed as part of being like a program project manager, and that really, I think, set me up for the breadth of knowledge that I have now. And of course it's still growing because technology is changing all the time, right? So just staying on top of it.
And how much of that was you having a champion at work that was putting you forward for those projects, and how much of it was you putting yourself forward?
Yes, I mean, I was definitely lucky from the early days. Like I had champions there that were that they believed in me and put me forward for opportunities. But some of it was definitely, like, I'm a self-starter, right? And seeing opportunities, and particularly like, you know, when there's problems, like rather than just going, oh, I've identified this problem, was actually trying to think about how you would solution it, or even sometimes going one step further and solutioning it yourself, is so invaluable. And I really enjoyed just kind of doing that, even if sometimes it was on the side, even if it wasn't recognised, because I knew long term that I was gaining from it, and hopefully one day it would pay it back for me in my future. So yeah,
Which I'm sure it has.
hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So a lot of our community will, they'll be applying to CFG degree opportunities at our finance partners,
Yeah.
but they won't have any technical backing in any other sector before.
Yeah.
Is that an advantage or a disadvantage when you're going into finance?
I mean, I see it as an advantage, right? I started out with no prior financial background and no technical background either, right? I'd just come straight out of university. So you're starting with a blank page. So long as you go in open-minded, which is my best advice to anyone, and I think anyone should do that anyway, going into whatever you go into, right? Whether it's motherhood or whether it's your career, like go in open-minded and just see that you will have the opportunity to make an impact, and you will learn. The best way you can be is to learn how your business operates, and we allow that in banks because we have certain regulations, certain risks that we adhere to, but then we train and we all become part of the community, and the culture is really, really key to that community, right? And we make sure we instill in our people that we all, we train together, we learn together, we share ideas, and that kind of, and actually I would say it's very entrepreneurship kind of the way we operate as a business. And I think so long as you go in open-minded with that entrepreneurship thought, you can really like learn and do anything, because you're surrounded by people and it's a very collaborative environment. So I wouldn't worry about any kind of pre kind of history of backgrounds or knowledge from other industries, because I think it's best to just come in completely brand new.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And then let the bank teach you, sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you touch on entrepreneurship there, and it is Entrepreneurship Month this month at Co-First Girls. What are the key differences and similarities between what you're doing and being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all entrepreneurs at the end of the day. It's funny actually, I studied entrepreneurship as part of one of my degree courses, and I just loved it because I think that really just empowered me to feel about entrepreneurship. It's not about going on Dragon's Den with the latest idea and like, is it going to float? Is it going to sink? I mean, that's effectively what you do every day, right? You have some ideas that are sticky and they work, and some ideas that you think, actually, do you know what, I'm going to save this back pocket. I might need this at another time. And every problem or opportunity, whether it be people related, system related, has an opportunity for you to bring your entrepreneurship mind to it. And that's what I just love about this industry in particular, and just how fast pacing it's moving, and you bringing that to your work.
Definitely. And I think the theme that I'm hearing here is around like the curiosity and the open-mindedness.
Totally.
And if I was a Co-First Girls graduate starting my first job with you at Goldman Sachs, outside of my technical skills that I'm bringing, are those the key kind of soft skills that you would recommend me bringing to the table?
Yes, definitely. Just an interest to learn, right? Leading with data is one of our engineering tenets that we strongly look at the data. What's the data telling you? Bring that to the table if you've got a problem, and having the I love that word, curiosity. Like, definitely you always need to be curiosity. What's coming around the corner, and seeing what's next, and just as a leader in general, right? If you've got that mindset, that will set you up for success in the future. So
yes, absolutely. A lot of our community are really ambitious, and so they'll be looking at your career and thinking, that's where I want to get to. I eventually want to be kind of around the leadership side of things. How have you found that transition into leadership, and have you had to say goodbye to more of the technical areas of your role, or are you able to, well, you kind of mentioned before, you're able to do that at the same time?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have had to say goodbye to some elements of the technical side. My career path just naturally happened. I don't think I am today, but I couldn't tell you how I necessarily got there. It just kind of opportunities, and I guess the next thing was waiting, and that just kind of, or the next problem was waiting to be solved, and I just kind of leapt for it. But yeah, if I was to tell my younger self, or Co-First Girls kind of starting out, is to definitely think about how you can not narrow yourself too early. So don't focus just on whether it be people or technical, whichever way, just try and be broad. And so when you look at your next opportunity, or if an opportunity comes to you, challenge the person that's giving you the opportunity to say, is it going to stretch me in all of the domains that I want to be, that you want to remain stretched in? So for me, like, you know, probably the opportunities around leading teams, but also having the system or the project behind it that you can still remain technical on will empower you to remain technical. And look, if someone recognizes you as a good people leader, they will give you people to manage, like, and it's not a bad thing, but just make sure you stay true to yourself and try and remain as technical as possible, so that obviously as you grow as a leader and people manager, you don't necessarily feel like you're less equipped from a technical perspective.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Fantastic. And looking back now, where you're at the point where you have, you know, you can trace through the university journey and then the onboarding into finance, and then moving your way up into more of a leader. Are there any things that you would have done differently, or you would have liked to have thought, you know, come at from a different perspective throughout your career?
I guess like the mentorship thing, I think quite early on you're always encouraged actually to get a mentor, and sometimes I think you realise that for whatever reason the mentor might not be necessarily aligned to you, or your aspirate, they might be completely different to you. I remember one of my very first mentors was absolutely lovely, and I think she was aligned to me because she was a female in engineering, but we had nothing in common. And I just found we would meet up and we'd have lovely meetups, but I didn't get too much out of it at the time. And I think it's okay to be like, actually, this is a great friendship, but from a mentor perspective, I've not got aspirations to do the role you're doing. Like, we've not shared a similar career history or even upbringing. And so actually I don't find much in common. It's a bit like dating, I guess, in a funny sort of way, right? So it's kind of like thinking about, so being more structured early on around like those engagements and those networks that you do make. And when you find a mentor or a relationship with someone that sticks, just to make that, and that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be this official kind of engagement. So that's definitely. And then the second thing I think is really around self-belief, right? I think we all, that inner voice, and I think sometimes I felt a lot that my inner voice was kind of the only voice, and no one else had this similar feeling of like, have I done this right? Should I do this? Could I do this better? And it's not until you talk to women and men that actually we all suffer from the inner voice. Some just learn to dial it down more than others. And so just early on having that confidence to be like, yeah, it's okay to like recognize that voice is there and there's thoughts and feelings, but knowing when to like use them to your advantage and when to just actually be like, shut that voice away. It's not doing you any good.
Can you remember a particular situation where the voice was very loud in your career?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and look, and I think it's kind of probably what made me who I am today, right? So I'm glad I explored it early on and kind of hopefully learned to shut it down a little bit. But yeah, those moments, they stick with you, but I think they make you who you are today. So yeah.
If it doesn't feel, can't remember what the phrase is, but it's all around growth, isn't it? So
Yeah.
if it doesn't feel comfortable, it's probably growth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah.
No, that's great. So key recommendations for our community who are just starting out. I mean, you've onboarded multiple graduates and people who are starting out in their tech careers. So open-mindedness,
Yes.
curiosity, jumping in with both feet.
Yeah.
Probably jumping in with both feet despite the voice in your head telling you that you're not equipped to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Mentorship,
Yes.
as and when it's suitable, and don't be afraid if it's not working out to then look for other alternatives.
Correct.
Are there any other pieces of quick advice for our community that are watching this?
I think you summarised it well. I think just just kind of jumping in. I like that. Just jump in. And use your network around you as your support, and be yourself, right? At the end of the day, be yourself, stay true to your values and beliefs. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, and it's okay to change things. And yeah, that's the other thing, I guess, is never see it I guess I've always gone through my career as never seeing it as this is the final career I'm ever going to have. And that's probably why I've stuck at it for so long. Every day is different. And that's what's great about this industry. You'll never get the same problem from one day to the other. So long as you're comfortable with that, then go get it. And and just don't worry about the future. Your path will take the path that it needs to take.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Katie.
Thank you for having me.